All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now let's move on to our first discussion. House of Representatives passed second reading on a bill for an act to establish the National Commission for ALMAJIRI Education and Out-of-School Children to provide for a multimodal system of education to tackle the menace of illiteracy, develop skill acquisition and entrepreneurship programs, prevent youth poverty, delinquency, and destitution in Nigeria, and for other related matters. Now we have this morning joining us in the studio Balarabe Shehu Kakale, member representing Bodinga, Dengeshuni, Tureta Federal Constituency in Sokoto State, the man who led the debate on the bill that passed the second reading with an overwhelming support from his honorable colleagues. You're welcome to Daybreak this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's great to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
But I must say that this is good news, isn't it? Could you talk to us about how rigorous was it to get this bill passed?
Well, it's a people's own bill. It's a bill that is meant to really democratize education. Education in Nigeria has been a more of, in a manner, if I might say, dictatorship. So it's a sort of transition bill from a situation of dictatorship in education system to democratization of education system. And from a certificate-based education system in Nigeria to a skill-based education system in Nigeria. And there is a large chunk of a section of Nigeria where they have a system of education that predated colonialism. And for now, over 120 years since colonials came to this part of Africa, that sort of education was relegated and excommunicated, if I might use that word. And that section of society, that is particularly the ALMAJIRI system of education, have not been really been comfortable with the conventional system, or what they call the formal system of education, has been responsible for the large number of millions of what we call out-of-school children. For a lot of us, they're actually not out of school, they're in the school, but the system that have refused to recognize that system of education that have produced all that that society, or those, should I say, kingdoms and chiefdoms had before the colonials came. So with the rising number of out-of-school children and the neglect of that system of education, we started canvassing support from members who very well know the problem, right at hand. And over time, yes, a lot of members across both chambers, even in the the Senate, supported, the idea of coming with a bill. The leadership of the House played a very, very, very important role. And when it was presented for second reading, it had that overwhelming support to go through the second reading.
Okay, now with the projected number of out-of-school children that UNICEF has actually reported, that's almost 20 million children are out of school. What are the likely challenges and implications of such a large number of children that are out of school?
Nigeria will never achieve its developmental goals. We'll never be able to lift 100 million people out of poverty. And we'll never be able to achieve the SDG goals and be in community of nations in this 21st century if we do not tackle the problem of these out-of-school children. The UNICEF data are just projections. I really want to use even this opportunity to challenge MBS, to really come up with the real statistics of out-of-school children. For me, there are probably around 40 million. There are not just 20 million that as the data presented recently. And all the poverty indices that was also released by the MBS, National Bureau of Statistics, have everything to do with this segment of beautiful Nigerian little children that have been, left on the streets, in markets, in parks all over the country. We have them up north, we have them down south. And I really want to tell Nigerians to understand, there is a conspiracy of colonial legacy. That when they came and conquered this country and amalgamated, they decided to declare all forms of education, as non-formal, non-conventional. Where does that kind of thing happen? And then, even after independence, 60 years on, we still agree with that concept. When Lord came, and whoever was his co-travelers that time, they decided, particularly for the Sokoto Caliphate, to bring up a policy and say, because they met them with a system of education, system of governance. We had a youth policy, women policy. We also had an economic policy, social policy. But they said they have a standing policy of governance that let's declare these people illiterates. And we have been on that track, on the infamous track for this number of years. So as I've said, the bill aims to really democratize education in a contextual and flexible manner, in a culturally sensitive manner that will make Nigerians have a sense of belonging and recognize other systems of education beyond formal and conventional system. It's not a four-walls classroom where you are taught ABCD. That's education. Nigerian education has been reduced to just, literacy, being able to read and write English, ABCD. That's not education. That's just literacy. And for the ALMAJIRI system, the Sangaya and the Makaranta Allo system, they already have that for over a millennium, in Arabic or in Ajami. And they are also, in their curriculum, have a dose of entrepreneurship, vocational, technical, and other skills in that system of education. The current system of education in Nigeria is merely rote-based, only to certificate that you can speak English. Honestly, it's been a travesty for this country. What we want now is an industry-based and resource-based education. And that's what this bill wants to really bring forward. For example, I'm from Sokoto State. We are the largest producers of, say, onions and tomatoes. We have the second largest livestock production, probably the first. And we also have massive deposits of limestone. But nothing in our curriculum teaches our children at any level about these resources that are there. We have to depend on importation of that expertise and manpower, either to process tomatoes or to process rice or the cement that we have. For example, thank God we have Boa there producing 5 million metric tons of cement. But if we don't train our children to have the needed skills, the skill set to run that company, it has to be somewhere else. The same thing, for example, in Kebbi, where they have rice, or Zamfara, or in Kogi, where we have iron ore. The recent discovery, or the oil was drilled in Kolmani, in Bauchi and River State, in Bauchi and Gombe states, is also another example. We cannot afford to not have a curriculum in our schools and education system that teaches our children about hydrocarbons, oil and gas across Nigeria, not only these two states. So this bill wants to really radically overhaul the curriculum system of education in Nigeria to be industry-based and resource-based, not just be given paper and be qualified with a certificate that you can only speak a particular language. So it also has a component where, there will be innovative funding to also support federal government funding, and also do a flexible system of education where those children are, or those malams are, take the education to them in a manner that they will accept it, and also add literacy and numeracy, as the case may be. There are also a component of course, transition, saving, and consequential amendments that will be triggered by this bill. That has to do with UBEC, a National Commission for Nomadic Education, the Nigerian Director of Employment, ND, and the National Education and Research Development Council. Thankfully, this morning, I was reading in the news that UBEC has also worked on the Nigerian curriculum to bring back history, which is extremely important because you can imagine, again, I will refer to my state, that in our education system, there is nowhere the history and the contributions of Sheikh Usman Nafudio and all his compatriots are taught in our schools. It's really not acceptable. But amendments have been made, and we're happy about that.
Okay. Now, just like you've highlighted, the issue of child destitution is indeed a national emergency, and the government alone cannot do it. Some stakeholders have criticized this, saying that there is also the role of parents who actually send their children off from other states to other parts of the country to study the Holy Quran without proper welfare. So in that regard, what number of advocacy do you need to do to sensitize parents on just sending off their children to different states?
Definitely parental and community responsibility is key. But let me quickly say, I'm talking about the primary classical ALMAJIRI. I hope you know there are also secondary or even tertiary ALMAJIRI, where there is a syndicate for socio-economic reasons and issues that have to do with poverty being moved around in the name of ALMAJIRI, when actually they are not the real ALMAJIRIs. The primary Almajiri are usually taken care by the community or community leaders, and then their malams are known, they have an address, and they have a timeline of school. But of course, over time and because of population explosion, we have had issues of corruption of the system. This bill will definitely have a trigger effect on the control of that as far as social investment is concerned. And there's a component of parental responsibility that's taken care of in the bill. Yes, parents must be responsible. And an extensive reorientation, enlightenment, and education of our communities and societies must be done. And where penalties, for example, are needed to be dished out, definitely that will be done. But the government also has its own responsibility. Over the years, the system and policy of education in Nigeria have deliberately defunded, ostracized, and strangulated the system of education. And this is where we are today. You can have a system of people being able to read and write. They have a skill set. They have craft system. They are based with agriculture, livestock production, and just because it's done in a particular language, and then you cut it off. So if the Almajiri system has been funded all through, I'm telling you, Nigeria would have been leading the pack in Africa in areas of agriculture, in areas of industry, and human capacity development. So at the federal level, definitely we all agree that education is on a concurrent list. The states have to do a lot in that area, and also community leaders, traditional leaders, faith-based organizations will also have to do a lot in getting parents to understand you have to take responsibility of the children that you have when you take to school, and also the malams. This bill also takes care, across both sides of the Niger. It's not only about Almajiri, also about also school children in the south, children in the parks, children in markets, children on the street, and in trade, and also apprenticeship. Their skill sets should be quantified and graded and be certificated, just like the Almajiri at the primary or secondary school level. But all of them, they shouldn't be designated just out of school because you don't understand English. I think that's the most important thing about this bill. I want to repeat that this bill is about transition of the Nigerian education system from dictatorship to democratization of education. It's a transition in Nigerian education policy and system from a paper-based certification of education to skill-based innovation and creativity set of education, where our Nigerian children, whether Almajiri or anywhere that they are, they will be job creators, they will be innovators, not just job seekers going about with certificates, looking for jobs.
Okay, now just to pick up on what you just said, now according to the report, Kano State leads the pack, and then with Akwa Ibom, Katsina, and Kaduna State, following closely as states with the number of out-of-school children. But despite, the report stating that it's not just in the north, out-of-school children, it's not just in the north, it cuts across the 6 geopolitical zones, people still seem to think that it is a northern problem.
Yeah, because there is a large chunk of those out-of-school children that are Almajiris, and they are categorized as out of school. I want to state that as far as I'm concerned, I do not agree that they are out of school. They are in the school, but the system for 60 or 100 years have refused to recognize. And that is what has brought us to the bottom of the ladder of human capital development. There's a school system for over 1,000 years that we have had in this country or in Africa. But then we had a policy that ostracized and cut them off. So what this bill is intended to do is to recalibrate and also reform that system, regulate it, and then bring it to the mainstream and recognize as a system of education that's autonomous and independent, in tandem with the needs of aspiration of any child anywhere in the world, particularly, for the 21st century child. Now imagine those millions of children that you have talked about. If they were to be certificated, with the skills that they have, the skill sets they have, with the skill sets that they have, and they would add up to the numbers of those who are literate or who are educated. But once you are an Almajiri, no matter the depth of your education in the Nigerian context, you are an illiterate. Let me cite an example. Nigerians, young Nigerians over the years have been going for competitions, for example, for Quranic recitation and Hafiz all over the world. They become world champions in very intensely competitive, sessions. They become world champions of Quranic recitation. But it stops there. Once they step into Nigeria, that child or that student is an illiterate. Honestly, that's an insult to millions of Nigerians, who really believe in that system of education. So, as I've said, this bill is about, flexible, contextual, and functional education system in Nigeria, not just the block and mortar cast of conventional formal education, which people call Western education, though it's no longer Western, where you have to go and learn English and that's all. So that is the essence of what this bill attempts to achieve, and I said it's across all boards. Now we're going to work interfaith, with our Christian brothers across the country, where we have, for example, Bible schools or seminaries or any theology system that has not been really co-opted into the mainstream. It should also be graded and certificated. This is an existential problem. It's an embarrassing problem that we have over 20 million young Nigerians, by some policy of colonial masters, we still regard them as illiterates and out of school, when they contribute immensely to the development of this country, to the peace and economic development of this nation.
Okay, but for this bill to work, don't you think that some of the factors that actually constitute to, the ALMAJIRI and the out-of-school children need to be tackled? For example, insecurity, because right now we have a lot of displaced people, and some of them can't even take their children or their wards to school, so they end up in the streets hawking and, doing other menial jobs.
Yeah, it's like it's the story of the chicken and the egg. Who came first? We really want to thank God, and the prayers of all well-meaning Nigerians that ALMAJIRI, I still want to emphasize, the ALMAJIRI, classical and primary ALMAJIRI, have not been involved in terrorism and crimes. God forbid the day those millions of Nigerians will be induced or will be brainwashed to really play part in that. It will never happen, inshallah. But this is the problem. Why should you have a whole section of swath of millions of populations and deny them recognition and dignity in a system of education that they believe? ALMAJIRI students, where they are hard working, they are intelligent, they are rugged. I repeat, I'm talking about the classical and the primary ALMAJIRI. They are school students that after those years they move on. So we are going to work with states, and of course, as I've said, education, basic education in the concurrent list. The bill also will definitely trigger the establishment of such commissions in the various states, and the commissioners of education across Nigeria will work on those contextual, flexible, and culturally based models of education that work for their people. Somebody, for example, in the creeks whose life is all about fish and waterways, and you just keep him in the school teaching him ABCD without anything or knowledge about how to process fish or industry of the blue economy. You imagine, even for example, one of the challenges we're having with National Commission for Nomadic Education. Many Fulanis have told us that you have a commission that emphasizes only on the teaching of ABCD when they do not teach them on how to treat or prevent diseases of their cattle, or how to process milk or dairy. So that's the disconnect we want. Let me use this opportunity to call on all commissioners of education in Nigeria to please work with their state legislators, and of course with their national legislators, in trying to see how we step down this bill and build contextual, people's own curriculum system in our states that will produce the right set of skills for our children. For example, now, as I've said again, in Bauchi and in Gombe, where we just had the Kolmani oil was drilled, I think their commissions of education should immediately begin the incorporation of hydrocarbon, oil and gas, curriculum. Studies in their curriculum to project for the future about who will manage that industry. And the same thing with Niger Delta states. So the states, if this bill is really, adopted by the state, and states are already doing it. For example, Sokoto just passed their bill, I think, yesterday on Almajiri Commission in Sokoto State. Kano is doing a lot of work on that. We have been in contact with the commissioners of education in Yobe. They are doing great work in that area. The same thing with Gombe, Borno. Also, Kaduna will have their own reforms that they are doing. Lagos State and other southern states are also doing a contextual curriculum that fits the needs and developmental aspirations of the people. We are tired of dictatorship in education, where English is placed above and over every other skill set, or is used as a calibration or measure of intelligence. No, English is a language. Even in Europe, 54 European countries, how many of them have English? The language of growth and development should be our local languages. Whether it's English, Hausa, Yoruba, TV, Kanuri, Fulani, or Ijo. The language of growth and development should be our local language. English, of course, give it to it. It's language of international communication and international business, yes, but the language of growth are definitely our local languages. And the next thing we're going to do is to really make these basic Nigerian languages as official languages, to be used as language of instructions in our schools from primary level to tertiary level.
Okay. Now, talking about innovation, as you've highlighted, here I can see like the normal allo that we know, and then there's a digital one. Could you talk to us about what are some of the features or differences in some of those learning materials?
This is the certificate of the typical classical primary Almajiri. This certificate, the Nigerian system under colonial occupation have rejected. It's a certificate of graduation of a typical Almajiri Sangaya or Makaranta Allo child that, exposes 7 skill sets. This allo that you're seeing teaches or tells the bearer or whoever, has it, that he is literate, he can read, he can write, and the person also has been trained in graphics, as you can see in the center of the board. They are taught, geometry. They are also taught coloring, artwork, and also things that have to do with paintings that I've said. And you can see in that center, of course, you have square, pentagon, hexagon, ellipsoids, and many other things. These are taught in the Almajiri schools. Then you go to the wooden slate. The wooden slate is the training they have, the issues that have to do with wood carving and furniture. So they are also sort of skill sets in that area. And then the leather covering, this leather coverings, talks about the certification of that child in animal husbandry, in leather, and things that have to do with animal production. So the certification is about him being self-reliant and not going to be looking for jobs anywhere. So that's what this certificate of the typical Almajiri is all about. Now, going forward to the 21st century, of course, for digital justice, for digital justice and digital inclusion of the Almajiri, we have been working with a lot of people, and then this
Could you just show it
law,
to the screen the other way?
This digital law came about, which is an upgrade, for example, of the classical law, where Almajiri children will definitely be taught everything you can think of in the digital space of knowledge, e-learning, and commerce. This digital law has over 300 apps that has to do, of course, with literacy, linguistics, and other things, arithmetic, social studies, and of course, a lot of skills and entrepreneurship apps that the child will learn. So the plan is, for example, every Almajiri to have this tablet in Nigeria, every out-of-school child to have this tablet, where it will also bring renewed interest in learning among the Nigerian child, and in a format that that everybody will accept. You can have even a central, a single teacher, for example, somewhere, anywhere in the world that can really transmit e-learning to these children where they are. A lot of civic education also, citizenship, the love and patriotism for your country is also part of it. Security studies are also embedded there. And there's the writing slate here where they can still write either in Hausa, in Arabic, in English, in Igbo, in Yoruba, or in any other aspects. So this is about digital justice for the ALMAJIRI child, the millions of them, and a lot of children that we have tested with this slate are very, very excited. Let me at this juncture really commend the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Development, the Haja Sadia Umar Farouk, who we have been working together on the area of ASP Alternate School program, which has been established, a committee, Presidential Steering Committee, to work on out-of-school children, by President Muhammadu Buhari. We have been working together to see how we tackle the social component, socio-economic component, of course the education component with the Minister of Education of the large number of out-of-school children that we have in Nigeria.
Okay, so, from everything you've said, the ALMAJIRI children, would definitely have the full curriculum, at their beck and call. So, but would they be able to compete with students from other pairs, from other conventional schools?
Definitely. The world now is all about what you can do. Skills certificates, not certificates. It's about innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship. It's about skills, and I repeat, skills. The current education system do not emphasize on skills. And whether they are hard skills or soft skills, all it does is get a certificate, flash it somewhere and get a job. And that's why there is massive, issues of exam malpractice. And then because the education system has been so, I'm trying to find the right word, has been so diluted, let me say that, with all due respect to all those who have been working hard to improve it. People now are in their need of, I repeat, contextual, community-owned system of education, like it's done everywhere in the world, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in China, and even in Germany. So with the inclusion of digital skills, entrepreneurship, vocational training, literacy and arithmetic, I'm telling you, this set of students that are going to work under this commission and bill are going to beat the conventional students, because for them, those are the real, graduates that Nigeria needs to move forward as a 21st century nation. And it will also spring up a lot of competition with the other conventional. What we are even projecting is a lot of people will leave the conventional system of education and move to this reformed system, where they will be very proud of the products that it produces, who are going to be job creators and not job seekers.
Well, from the look of this digital, it looks very expensive. I don't know if it is very expensive. How would these students be able to have access to this? Are they going to be given for free, or are they going to pay token?
Yeah, we're going to have a pilot study, which I said I've already started in Sokoto, and we're also working with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management on that social investment program, because they are also really very interested in this digital law and the potential it has in revolutionizing education in Nigeria, and also bringing about social and education inclusion to all manner of out-of-school children. This is the prototype,
okay.
and definitely as we move forward, I'm sure the price will be out. I'm not sure of the price now, the prototype that we have. And for me, for example, I'm planning to buy dozens of units, for my constituents, train the malams there on their use, and of course other groups of children. And I'm sure state governments and even the federal government will also have roll out a plan to engage and probably even make it better as far as the content is concerned. On the needs of the Nigerian student curriculum.
Okay, so you actually talked about, working with other interfaith organizations. Is it on this idea? Do you guys have similar ideas?
Yes, we have similar ideas because let me tell you, everybody is worried about the out-of-school challenge. The figures being quoted, 20 million, is really, really scary. It's the largest in the world. And out-of-school children are everywhere. There are Christian out-of-school children, there are Muslim out-of-school children. And when, the whole, bubble ruptures, due to inaction of concerned authorities and communities, everybody suffers. Insecurity, instability, social unrest do not know religion, do not know creed, and don't know borders.
Definitely.
So we can continue in this era, to leave these children deliberately shut out. The main essence of the bill, I repeat, I want to say here is, for example, the young apprentice and shopkeeper in Onitsha that has so much experience in dealing with large quantities of motor spare parts and other things, and transactions, money and containers, and also the young entrepreneur in, for example, the fashion industry in Abia. By the current Nigerian system, as far as they do not go to conventional school, they are illiterate. So what we are saying, that knowledge and skill set, is extremely important. It should be quantified and graded and be certificated. And they should be included as having knowledge that can contribute to development of Nigeria. All you can maybe add is add numeracy and literacy and then certificate equivalently. So in the interfaith thing, the working with our Christian brothers on this is because of the ALMAJIRI system, is basically an Islamic and Quranic-based education system, and you have to really find a balancing point with similar religious, based education system in Nigeria, and work together for the benefit of all, and for inclusive planning for all sectors of society, as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, I think with that, I think we'll just add one more question, and then we will wrap up this particular discussion. Now, you talked about, you brought about people in Onitsha and some people actually in the north. They actually have this belief that that education, you don't need education to actually succeed. Especially in Nigeria, a lot of people are of that perception, they're of that mentality that you don't need education to succeed. So how do you intend on, changing their minds and making them see that, education, even though you talked about, entrepreneurship, some would actually jump on that, but how do you intend to convince them that, education and entrepreneurship actually goes together, and they will need education if they want to succeed, in entrepreneurship as well?
That comes to, us agreeing on what's the definition of education. I've gone around almost 10 northern states, listening and conversing and having focused group meetings on ALMAJIRI system of education. There is nowhere that any one of them, groups or individuals have said they don't need education. The education they're talking about is Western education. And their own education, they have it. They have gone through it, and they know they are educated. So that is that's the paradox. The Nigerian system only believes in Western or formal education, and they name all those ones as non-formal, non-conventional education system, based on a colonial conspiracy that Lord Lugard decided to declare all Nigerians illiterate unless you learn English. We are going to uproot that. We'll never agree with that, and unfortunately 60 years on, even so-called independence, we're not doing. So in the parlance, common and local parlance of all Almajiris and in northern Nigeria, they believe in education. It's even one of the major pillars of Islam, that you must go and look for education wherever it is, if it's as far as China. There's a hadith to that. So they believe they are educated. And yes, true to what they're saying, with their own brand of education, they have been successful. They don't need Western education. We have billionaires, multi-billionaires in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, that have never been to the four corners of the Western type of education. and they're employing those who have gone to that, coming back, and they employ them. They employ even professors, and they are educated also. I met someone who has been to ALMAJIRI school. He can read in Arabic, he can write in Arabic and Ajami, he communicates, he writes letters all over the world. He is educated, but in the Nigerian context, he's an illiterate. So it's about dictatorship of education, and this bill is attempting to democratize education in a contextual, flexible, culturally, accepted manner. There's also industry and resource-based. It's about also skilling up education, providing skill certificates, not certificates, of an army of job seekers when the jobs are not there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion this morning.